His target would have been the Scud-B missiles, and they were located over here in southwestern Iraq in an area called H2 and H3. There were some 30 launchers in that area called H2 and H3 by oil pumping companies, and as you can see, a very easy flight over here. But those particular missiles, we were told weeks ago, the United States promised Israel that they would be among the first targets for U.S. warplanes, so we can only assume that because Martin Fletcher has not even heard an air raid siren, that those missiles were in fact launched. Now, I will tell you that the one word from the Pentagon in the last 15 minutes is that Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Colin Powell, will come into the briefing room at the Pentagon at 9:30 tonight, Eastern Standard Time, to brief after the President's announcement to the nation. And obviously we're waiting for that, but we do not expect to have details of how effective this initial wave of attacks has been, Tom.
Okay, Fred Francis, I'm still struck by the fact that that's rather a short order. NBC's Martin Fletcher in Tel Aviv. Martin?
Cheryl?
Martin?
Yep.
You're on the air. This is Tom Brokaw. What do you have for us?
Tom, the latest here is that the country has been told to get their gas masks ready. I have my gas mask here. We've been told to keep them in our hands, ready to put them on, but the order has not yet come over to put the gas masks on. That's the great fear, as I said before, that Israel has, that chemical war will begin. That would make Tel Aviv the first city in history, as far as we know, as far as our experts can tell us, ever to come under gas attack. The only village, there was once a village within Iraq that came under attack by the Iraqi army. This will be the first chemical war attack on a city in history.
All right. NBC's Martin Fletcher. And the reason, of course, that they are concerned about a gas or a chemical attack, maybe even a biological attack of some kind, is, first of all, the state of mind of Saddam Hussein. He'll do anything to get his way. He is an absolutely ruthless military commander. He used gas attacks on effectively his own countrymen, the Kurdish tribesmen, when he was at war with Iran during a dispute with them at that time. He's threatened to use gas again, but it must be pointed out that the gas attacks come from Scud missiles, and from missiles, they are not very effective, and they expect to be knocked out, and it's also not very directed. In other words, it can be diffused over a wide area. But it is an almost unimaginable fear that everyone has in that war theater. Now, we want to tell you what we know at this hour. The attack has been underway for, we think now, probably a couple of hours. It's uncertain just about when it was launched. It certainly was not 7 o'clock when we heard from Marlon Fitzwater. I think it probably began at around 5 or 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time today, when planes and Tomahawk cruise missiles were launched at Baghdad, first of all. Let's show you a broader map of the Middle East so that you'll have some orientation now to know what we're talking about. The cruise missiles were launched at Baghdad to military installations there, and there is the map. As you can see, the topical and the geographical relief of it all. Kuwait is that tiny oil-rich little country down there in the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia just below it, and it is believed that the most green of the Iraqi troops are on the southern border of that yellow area called Kuwait, and they probably are taking a real pounding at this hour, possibly from the B-52s. All the way to Baghdad, then, cruise missiles were launched to go after radar installations and other military sites. There have been reports of really horrendous explosions going on in the western end of the city. Credit where it's due, CNN is now reporting that it is black in Baghdad, although some smoke has been spotted in the area. That may have been the first wave of attacks. We still don't know what the strategy is. The president could come out tonight at 9 o'clock, announce what has been done, and said, Saddam Hussein, we have given you one more warning. Now we ask you, are you ready to pull out of Kuwait? And if there is no reply, he could go at them again with even more firepower. This has always been what I've called the Gaddafi model. That we'll show you what we can do, and then you respond to that. NBC's Dennis Murphy is in Amman, Jordan tonight. That's a country that's caught between Israel and Iraq. And one of the reasons that it is so volatile in Jordan, of course, Dennis, is that the population may be as high as, what, 70% Palestinian there?
Well, the Palestine would say it's more like 45% Palestinian, but you were here last week. There's no question. You walk through the streets of Amman, Jordan, and you see Saddam Hussein's pictures everywhere, by the taxi stands, by the news stands. What you have here is politically two separate groups. There's a Muslim fundamentalist movement, and there's also a radical Palestinian movement on the left. and both have found common cause. They're both united against the United States. And King Hussein has had to run that very tough course, Tom, of trying to be a neutral, trying to be something for everyone. The country, in a belated fashion, finally endorsed the UN sanctions. But at the same time, you had that support in the street for Saddam Hussein. And frankly, Tom, I'm not looking forward to the dawn here. This is a city, you look out from the 15th floor here at the hotel over Amman. This is, again, like a sprawling Los Angeles. You were here just the other day. And what we're afraid of is that when dawn comes, there's going to be some movement in the streets. The greatest fear, of course, is that the missiles would be launched to Israel, as Iraq has promised, that Israel would respond, and that Jordan would be pulled into the middle of all of this. The king said he knocked on every door for peace, and it was disappointed that he wasn't able to come up with some solutions. But civil unrest is what we're looking at for here in the next few hours. But it's a city asleep right now, Tom. It probably does not know that they're at war.
Are you able to get any Jordanian radio or television broadcast at this hour, or is that all shut down?
No, the radio is on. They've been playing patriotic music for the last few minutes. Earlier they were playing excerpts of the King's speeches, but the last news at the hour we had was at 2 o'clock. That was 41 minutes ago. It's 2:41 now here in Amman, Jordan. And there was no news about the war. They said only that we are prepared to go to war.
All right, NBC's Dennis Murphy pointing out for us the difficulties of being in Jordan. It could become a battlefield between Iraq and Israel. It has not yet come to that. There's no indication that there's been any attack whatsoever on Israel. It is a primary target. The Iraqis promised, but they may not be able to launch attack in that direction. But if they do so, Israel has made it clear it will respond in kind plus. It listened to the appeal from the United States and said, if we're under attack, then what we're going to do is we're going to strike back, and strike back hard. The animosity between the two countries is well known. Of course, it was Israel that took out the nuclear plant in Iraq several years ago now, because it was believed that Saddam Hussein wanted to use that to develop nuclear warfare. Gary Sick, your thoughts at these hours as a student of that part of the world and what's going on there tonight?
Two things, very briefly. One is that, in effect, this was a surprise attack by the United States. All of us, almost everybody in Washington and elsewhere, really expected the president to wait for some